Hello, my name is Mike McMaster. I work at the Wood County Museum, and today I have a program about Wood County history. And the very first slide is my lovely wife, Dr. Anna. And I chose this slide because she is a doctor, and today's program is about doctors. But two of the doctors I will talk about are women. And our first two doctors, probably the first two people practicing medicine in Wood County, were the Reverend Isaac Van Tassel and his wife Lucia Badger Van Tassel. They ran the Indian Mission School, but they did more than teach the Native American boys and girls. Dresden Howard, who went to the school, wrote that the mission was a hospital for the sick and that the upper front room of the mission was set up to receive and treat the sick Indians and pioneers. The photo in the background is supposedly one of the buildings still standing of the Indian Mission School. It has been torn down for many, many years. Now, the church gave Reverend Van Tassel medical equipment, and it was written that Reverend Van Tassel had been provided with stores of medicine, a thumb lance for bleeding, and a turnkey for pulling teeth. Now, he was doing more than teaching, he was practicing medicine to the Native Americans and to any pioneers that might be in Wood County. Now, Lucia Badger Van Tassel wrote that a young Indian came to the station who had been left behind by his friends, nearly gone with consumption. He begged to sleep by the fire of the Indian mission and gladly did any job he could to earn his keep. When he became too sick to work, the care for him, since Lucia Badger Van Tassel is writing this, it is safe to guess that the care for him fell to her. Lucia also wrote that a Native American woman, a mother, came to beg a watermelon for her sick son. The care of this sick son also probably fell to the woman, Lucia Badger Van Tassel. The mother, in thanks for nursing the son back to health, brings a basket of dried huckleberries to the Indian Mission School. Now, Lucia Badger Van Tassel is widowed late in life, and from her obituary it stated that Lucia, as a widow, attended medical college in New York State and successfully practiced the healing arts for 5 years in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, I always wondered if this were true until looking through the Memphis, Tennessee newspapers of the 1850s. An advertisement was found for none other than Mrs. Van Tassel, female physician and obstetrician, offering services to ladies who prefer an experienced and qualified female physician. And some of this she would have learned in her course of medical lectures, and some of this she would have learned in practicality at the Indian Mission School. The next story is a very pioneer story of Wood County about Elizabeth Musser Painter. She was born in 1805. She lives a very long life, and she was known to the pioneers in southern Wood County as the doctor. Now, Elizabeth Musser marries Peter Painter in 1822 in Columbiana County. They come to Wood County and settle in Bloom Township in 1839. Now, the two, Peter and Elizabeth, had 12 children, 8 of whom were born in Columbiana County. And Of her husband Peter, they wrote that he was a mechanical genius and learned various trades without any instruction, being an expert carpenter. And if you have 12 children, he also was an expert shoemaker. Now, although Peter owned an excellent farm in Columbiana County, Peter decided to seek fresh fields and pastures anew and set his eyes on Wood County. In the spring of 1839, the family traveled by old-fashioned scoop wagon with Peter and Elizabeth and their 8 children sleeping on the road as they traveled. A hewed log house was their first home, with wolves and deer, wild turkey, and bears for their neighbors. And it was written about the wolves that the wolves making free with their stock unless guarded against constantly. Now, trees were very dangerous to the pioneers. Felling trees and falling trees were very dangerous. And Elizabeth has a near-death experience. She goes to her husband, unbeknownst to him, as he is chopping a tree. And it was written, the tree fell towards her, but a large fork struck the ground on each side of her so that she was not injured. I have read many pioneer accounts of near-death experiences with falling trees. Now, of Elizabeth Painter, she was known for miles around as the doctor and was called for whenever there was any serious illness to nurse. She did not attend medical school. Medical schools were not open to women at this time. Everything she learned through experience, sewing people back together, setting broken bones, delivering babies, and the sort. She made many long trips through the woods of Wood County on these errands, protected from the wild animals by a large brown dog, Beldy. And Beldy had more than one desperate and bloody encounter with wolves, after which his wounds would be dressed as if it were a human being. The devoted labors of this noble woman were but poorly paid, and sometimes not paid at all so far as outward return went. The very last thing written about Elizabeth Musser Painter, the doctor, was that she possessed a marvelous vitality and lived until June 6, 1895. She is buried in Bloom Chapel Cemetery. And everything written about her is in one small paragraph. I wish that more were written about her. Lucia Badger Van Tassel kept a diary. That diary has been lost to history. I wish that diary were still around to read about her experiences. That is the last slide.